Hello everyone, welcome to Database Management System class. Today we are discussing about Unit 2, that is Data Modeling using the Entity Relationship Model. This is our third session. Welcome to the class. And in order to recall, in last class we discussed about a sample database application. We understood like how to design, how to start our initiation towards the development of the database. Especially we looked at company database. We were aiming, we were trying to analyze, we are trying to understand how to step forward towards the development of the database by taking a company as an example. There we understood like the initial step is to gather the requirements from the user, like whatever the requirement the user is expecting from the database is recorded, and later those statements are converted into high level conceptual model by using ER model, and we analyze step by step like what will be the entity, what are to be considered while developing company database, and what are the set of attributes or the properties that is going to describe our entity. Just for recall, there we studied about employee, department, project and dependent. Those are all the set of entities, and the properties those were describing these entities were termed as attributes. And even we explored the properties behavior as well. Like for few properties we told that it should be unique, and few properties were like it can have multiple values. So all these things will be studying in detail further in this class. And later we just had an introduction of entity and the attributes. We just studied the basic definition of entity and the attributes. So today's agenda goes like this. First we'll study the types of attributes, entity types, entity sets, key and value sets. Let's start. See, first of all, in order to continue from the previous session, we understood that entity means a real world entity, a real world object which we can physically feel or see, right? So that will be considered as entity. What is this attributes? Attributes are the particular properties that describes an entity. For example, if I take person as an entity, the features that is going to describe the person will be considered as attribute. Meaning to say, a person name, a person height, person color, person language. Everything will describe a particular person. Like I can differentiate a particular person, a particular man from another man. So these are the features that are going to differentiate one person from other person. These features or the properties that is going to represent a particular entity are termed as attributes. Further, if I take a car as an entity, then the car model, car color, car brand and type of engine and the speed, the maximum speed the car can meet up to, all this properties, it's going to define or it's going to represent the features of a car. All these properties are termed as attributes. Here in picture we depicted a student. What are all the properties that can define a student entity? See, initially I told a person as an entity. Person. Here we are concentrating only on a student. See, when I consider person as an entity, student can be an entity, even employee can be an entity, right? So, but here the example, whatever we are depicting, it's concentrating mainly on the student. We are focusing only on the student. If I go for employee, we will be concentrating with respect to employee attributes. Meaning to say, in employee attributes, there's no need for the company to maintain the marks of an employee. There will be mainly concentrating on the salary structure, the projects the employee is working on, or to the department the employee belongs to. Like we are concentrating on those properties or those relationships. But while coming for our student database, in students, with respect to student, the institution mainly focuses on the marks. Not only marks, it collects the detail about the student, including the name, address, date of birth, the section, the department. Everything will be collected and stored. But the main focus, like the aim, what we are mainly looking at, why are we using the database? For the easy maintenance of the data. But the feature, the functionality, when I come for the functionality section, we are concentrating on the sensitive data, that is marks management, and the courses that are taken by the students, and the fee structure, everything is maintained in database. So here, while coming for student database, in picture you can see we have attributes like roll number, age, email, date of birth. I am going in a clockwise direction. Let me repeat. For student entity, the attributes could be, the first one is roll number, and please go in clockwise direction. Next, email, date of birth, section, name. Under name we have first name, middle name, last name. Again, address, this locality, that is local, and the name of the town. Next is the class, and finally we have age. See, these are the set of properties or features that is going to describe a particular student. By using these values, I can find about whom you are talking and what are all the properties related to a particular student. And you could make it out. You please neglect the background color. Just observe the shapes in which all this data have been represented. These shapes are very much important, meaning to say roll number is represented in single eclipse, whereas for email we have two eclipse, and age, it's like a dotted eclipse. Why all these different notations we're going to see further, but you need to, by this time at least you should be in a position to identify like these there are different notations, or there are different symbols we are using pictorially. Even for pictorially we are using some different notations in order to differentiate these attributes, because attributes are further classified. See, attributes are a set of properties that is going to describe an entity, but these attributes are further classified. Let us proceed. The types of the attributes are, first is simple versus composite. Next we have single valued versus multi-valued, and stored versus derived, null attribute, and complex attributes. Coming for the first one, simple versus composite attribute. What is the simple attribute? Let me read the definition. Attributes that are not divisible further are called as simple attributes, and it's also called as what? Atomic attributes. For example, age of an employee. Age of an employee in employee entity. What they are meaning to say, see, the value of the age, can I decompose further? Is it possible for me to decompose? See, here the word divisible means it's not like divide by 2 or divide by 5. It is like decompose. Say suppose, let me consider another example. If I go for date of birth, Can I decompose further? Yes. How? See, date of birth I can decompose further as date, another as month and year. But age, can I decompose further? No. If you go for your name also, just for your name, consider your name. Can I decompose further? Yes. How? First name, middle name and last name. Decompose means what? We are dividing, but it's not a mathematical division. It's not like we are dividing it by 2. It's not like we are dividing it by 5. We are trying to decompose. Make it the bigger section. Sorry. The bigger part, we are trying it to reduce to smaller parts. That is the meaning, that is the actual meaning of divisible here. Let me repeat. The attributes that are not divisible, which cannot be decomposable, which we cannot decompose, are called as what? Simple or atomic attributes. Because age we cannot decompose, right? How can we divide our age furtherly? It's a full value. Age is a full value. But given the name, I can identify it as first name or middle name or the last name. Clear? Okay. Next, the composite attributes. It's just opposite of simple attributes. Where in simple attributes, we are unable to divide it further. Whereas in composite attributes, I'll read out the definition. It can be divided into smaller parts which represent more basic attributes with independent meanings. See, that word is important. With independent meaning. Meaning to say, when I divide our date of birth to date, month and year, date is altogether different from the month. Correct? There is no link between the date and the month. It's not like month is purely depending on the date. No. Month is independent value and date is independent value. And year is an independent value. If you go for your name also, so in below picture you can see like the name is divided into 3 parts, that is first name, middle name and last name. And here the first name is independent of middle name. We cannot have first name equal to your middle name. That will be like repetition. So it's not allowed. So they're telling the given attributes which can be divided into smaller parts that represents more basic attributes with independent meanings are called as what? Composite attributes. For example, the name attribute of an employee, the name attribute of the employee entity can be divided into first name, middle name and last name. Okay. Don't go with the pictorial representation. If you're not understanding also, then fine. If you're not getting, not an issue, because this pictorial, the notation, how we are going to represent this, we are going to see in the further classes. Just for your understanding sake, I'm just depicting a picture here. That's all. In order to grab the concept, by looking at the picture, you can make it out. Like simple means it's only a single value that we cannot divide further. But whereas when we have composite attributes, from figure we can make it out. It can be further divisible to first name, middle name and last name. Clear? Okay. Next, we have single valued attribute and multi-valued attribute. What is the single valued attribute? I'll read out the definition first. The attributes have a single value for a particular entity. Such attributes are called as single valued attributes. For example, date of birth of a student is a single valued attribute of a person. Meaning to say suppose, for example, if I consider phone number. Okay, if I consider phone number, one person can have many phone numbers, right? Yes, but can one person can have two Aadhaar number? The Aadhaar card what we have, can single person can have two two Aadhaar card? No. So only one value will be there for entire lifetime. Only one value will be there, correct? Even in the example whatever they have given here, for the entire lifetime, the date of birth of a particular person is fixed and it is only one value. I can't have two date of birth for a particular person. There are few exceptions, like their parents might have forgotten to maintain the date of birth, the date of birth of their child. In that case, what they do? They'll assume some random date of birth, and in few cases, like because while admitting for the school, the principal might have told like your child is under age in order to admit. So in that time, what they'll do, they'll change the date of birth value and they'll get their child get admitted to school. So in that case, they might have two date of births. But in practical situation, for the entire life, for the entire duration, for the existence of particular person, entity means for a particular, I'm not going to say person here, for a particular name, say suppose XYZ. For XYZ, the value of date of birth is only 1. Means it's fixed. And it is only 1. The value I can give is only 1. That is nothing but our single valued attributes. Meaning to say the attribute have a single value for a particular entity. We cannot have more than 2 value. See, what if there might be doubt in some students, ma'am, person ABC have some date of birth and person XYZ will be having some date of birth. Here 2 date of births are presented in the table. I agree. Here the table stores 2 date of birth. One is for person ABC, the other one is for XYZ. But though there are 2 date of birth for particular entity, for particular ABC, can I have 2 date of birth? No. There can be only 1 date of birth. And further, after some days, after 10 years, is the date of birth is going to change? No. Age can change. See, the age field can change, but date of birth field, does it going to change? No. So those attributes are called as what? Single valued attributes. Okay. Meaning to say, during entire lifetime, once the value is assigned, it's never going to change. We are not supposed to change it as well. Once the Aadhaar number is going to be assigned, once it's been assigned to a particular person, we're not supposed to change it. And the database will not allow us to do so because it's a single valued attribute. And it stays throughout the lifetime till the existence of particular ABC. Clear? Okay. Next, multi-valued attributes. As I said previously, the attributes can have set of values for the same entities is called as multi-valued attributes. For example, one person can have multiple phone numbers. Correct? Why is that storing multiple phone number required? Do I need to have 2 or more phone number in my database? Will it not work if I have only 1 phone number? Or won't it work if I don't have any phone number at all? See, it's all easiness. We are developing. We are trying to utilize the technology in order to make our life easy. See, if I say suppose online tracking, or else go for this online shopping. You have shopped something through online and the delivery man, he has come to your doorstep in order to deliver the product. And there are 10 houses in a particular building. If there is only one phone number in your database, delivery person tries to contact you, but unfortunately your phone is switched off. Now what is going to happen? The delivery person has come because he is unable to find out in which you are staying, though he is there in front of your building. He is unable to identify in which house you are staying. He is trying to contact you, but your number is saying it's switched off. In that case, he has to go back. But what if I provide a chance for the user or for the shopper, the person who is shopping? If we give him a chance to give 2 or 3 phone number in the contact details, the delivery person comes and tries for the first number, it says switch off. Now we can try for the second number. At least one or the second number, one or the other number will be contacted, and finally the goods will be delivered. In that case, the time of a delivery person is saved, and even you are delivered with the goods whatever you are requesting for. We are trying to make our life easy. The movement of the life we are carrying out by using technology. As technology has been advancing, the way the services are provided to the person or human being is also increasing, and it's making our life very smooth. So in multi-valued attributes, what happens? It allows us to store more than one value. In contrary, can I have more than one value for date of birth? No. So while designing, the database designer has to take care of everything. Like he has to take care of whether the attribute or the property which is describing a particular entity, does it belongs to single valued? Does it belong to multi-value? You need to identify as a database developer. For that sake, you need to learn all these types of attributes. So, multi-valued attributes, what it's saying, the attributes can have a set of values for the same entity, meaning to say for the same phone number and for the same entity. Same entity means here ABC, person ABC is one entity, person XYZ is another entity. We'll come to know that further. Here ABC, the person ABC can have multiple phone number. That's why here in picture also you can make it out. Student phone number, it's been represented in 2 eclipse, meaning to say it can have more than one value. And is it valid? Yes, it's valid, and we can store. There are many steps, like in order to store that multiple values in our database also, we need to follow some procedures. We need to reduce to some normal forms. That we are going to look further. For time being, is it valid to have multiple values in a table? Yes, we can have. Because a person can have multiple. While filling our application also, people will ask, like in address field, they'll give 2 options. One is for corresponding address, the another is permanent address. Even there the address field it belongs to multiple value. The phone number belongs to multiple value. Correct? Okay. Next, in order to summarize this slide, single value means an attribute can have only one value, and we cannot change it further. I can't change it further. That is your single value. In multiple value, what happens? An attribute can have more than one value. I'm not saying that a person, say suppose if he has a phone number 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm not going to replace that. I'm not deleting, I'm not erasing 1, 2, 3, 4 and I'm adding 5, 6, 7, 8. No, not like that. Along with the phone number 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm allowed to store 5, 6, 7, 8 also. And further, after many years, if a person asks us to change the name of the if a person asks us to change his phone number, we can easily do it. It's allowed in multi-valued. Okay, next. And a small picture where I just wanted to convey like how this multi-valued field will be represented in a particular table. See, we have an employee. This is an employee table. I'm not saying it's a database, it's just a table. We are not discussed till database yet, so we are assuming only a table here. In employee table, there is an employee ID, children, and birth dates. See, this employee ID, it's slightly separated from this children and date of birth. Why it's so? We'll explore it further. For time being, here you can make it out. Employee ID 6141, he has 3 children. It is Dan, Mike and Tina. And their corresponding date of birth is 11th of October and 12/7/92 and 4/1990. Here the children. In children field, you can make it out. There are 3 children for particular employee 6141. That multiple value, whatever we are storing there, that we are going to consider it as what? Multi-valued. Okay. Whereas the employee ID, it should be a single value. I can give 2 IDs to one employee. It should be a single value, whereas this is multiple value. The children field is multi-valued. So next question is like, can I have 3 child, Dan, Mike, Tina in one box, that is in one field? Can I have all the 3 values in one field? No, you're not supposed to have it. That's why the next table, saying that it's further improved, the representation is further improved, saying that for employee 6141, it's in 4th row. Please observe 6141, it's in 4th row, that is Dan, and 6th row, that is Tina, and 7th row, that is Mike. Okay, you might ask, like, why is it ordering is not same here, and why are we storing individually? We could have stored it in the format whatever it's represented in the first table as well, right? The question might arise. See, there are particular rules in order to store data in our database that we're going to look further, but for time being you just learn we cannot have more than one value in particular field. In one field I am talking, in one particular box. For time being you think as a box. So how to represent? You decompose. You have multiple tuple, that is multiple rows you create, and there the corresponding value you store it. Their corresponding date of birth and corresponding employee ID, you storing it for each and every name of the children. And why it has not come in that order? Like Dan, first it's supposed to be Dan, then it's supposed to be Mike, then it's supposed to be Tina. See what these people are doing it here in the image. They're trying to sort it depending on the birth date. Just observe the date of birth. The year you just observe. Is it sorted? Sorted means arranging. Is it arranged? Yes. So because they are arranging the data depending on the birth date, the name of the children, it's coming above and below. That's all. But the values are matching. Meaning to say 6141 has 3 children. Even in the second table, 6141 has 3 children, and even it's matching with their corresponding date of birth also. Similarly, next one 6142 has 2 children, and it's also matching with the corresponding date of birth. Clear? So this slide, why did I get it here? In order to demonstrate like how multi-value, how one field can have multiple value. Previously in example we show like even a phone number could be multiple value, address can be multiple value, the name, the employee can have more than one children, so even that could be a multi-value, right? So in order to summarize, single value means it can have only one value, whereas multi-value means it can have more than one value. The attributes means properties of a particular entity. It can have it can have more than one features or more than one values. Fine. Next, we have further classification of the attributes. We have stored attributes and derived attributes. What is the stored attributes? First, let me read the definition. The stored attributes are such attributes which are not stored in which are already stored in database. The stored attributes are such attributes which are already stored in database and from which the value of another attribute is derived. I'll complete this example part also. For an example, for an employee entity, the value of age can be determined from the current date, that is today's date, and the value of the person's birth date attribute. Let me read it again. In an employee entity, the value of age can be determined by using what? Today's date and the value that's been stored in birth date attribute. So what they're trying to say, see, in table can have date of birth. Date of birth can be stored. See here, the date of birth can be stored in a table, correct? Say suppose if I ask you what is the age of Tina, that is 6141 Tina, she was born in 1990. Please observe, it's in 6th row, the data is in 6th row. Look at the second table. The birth year of Tina is 1990. Okay, this is the data, it's given to you. The table is given to you. Assume that the children table is given to you. And I'm asking, what is the age of the Tina? What's her age? So, by looking at her birth date, can we guess her age? Is it possible to find out her age? Yes, it's possible. How? You subtract the year, you subtract the date, you subtract the birth date from the current date. Clear? So current date will be knowing to everyone, right? So if you subtract the value it's been stored in birth date from the current date, we are going to get the value of age. So what happens, what they are trying to say, because we are able to derive a new value from already existing value, the existing value is called as stored attributes. Here birth date is called as stored attributes, whereas the age I'm saying, the age is called as derived attributes. Why derived attributes? Because am I storing age here? Do I have a separate column? I'm telling column. Do I have separate column for age? No. We have column for employee ID, name and birth date. We don't have column for age. Then too, can we calculate the age of a given person? Yes, we can calculate. How? By using the existing one. Which attribute are we using? Are we using the name field? By using name field, can we calculate the age of a person? No. At least by using employee ID, can I calculate the age of person, that is Tina? No. By using date of birth, that is birth date, can I calculate? Yes. So, in that case what happens, that birth date is called as stored attributes, because by using that, I am calculating I'm trying to calculate some other value. That's why the birth date is called as what? The stored attribute. Let me repeat. The stored attributes are such attributes which are already stored in database. They are stored in database, and from which the value of another attribute is derived. We are calculating age by using what? Date of birth. That's why the date of birth is called as what? A stored attribute. For an employee entity, the value of the age can be determined from the current date and the value of the person birth date. Therefore, the birth date attribute is called as what? Stored attribute. And derived attribute. By this time you might be knowing the definition or else the example for the derived attribute, I guess. So derived attributes are those attributes whose value is calculated from the other attributes. For example, the age attribute is called as derived attributes. Clear? Okay. And next we have null attribute. First of all, what is this null attribute? Okay. Say suppose, before going for the definition, just look at the table given below. We have a table for student. We have table for student course. Look at the first table. Under student, we have student number, student name, student phone, student state, student count, and student age. So from this table, you can make it out all the students, like student Ram, and even the second row, in second row we have student name as Ram. Is it possible or else is it allowed to have two rows with the same name? Yes, it's allowed. Why? Because see, the first row, the first tuple, in first row, the student number or the roll number of Ram is 1 and he is from Haryana. Whereas the second student whose name is Ram, even the second student name is Ram, I agree, but his number is 2, roll number is 2, and he is from Punjab. From this we can clearly make it out, like there are two students with the same name in a particular class. How are we differentiating them? By using their student number. Okay, this is not the point here. We want to know what is null attribute. Coming for student 4, whose name is Suresh, he doesn't have phone number. He's not having any phone. That's why he doesn't have any phone number. My question is, because that student doesn't have any phone number, can I leave that field empty? I'm saying it as field, not the entire row. See, the entire row, it has student number as 4, the name as Suresh, and he is from Punjab, and the country is from India, and his age is 21. All this is fine. Because he doesn't has phone, can I leave that particular phone, student phone attribute as empty? No. So you might be thinking, instead of leaving empty, why can't you put 0? 0 says nothing, right? 0 means he doesn't has, you might be thinking, at this moment, you might be thinking 0 means the Suresh he doesn't have phone number. But I'm not supposed to do that, because even 0 has a value. 0 represents a value. I want something which says there is nothing in that field. How to do that? In order to do that, we will be using null value, that is NULL. Meaning to say what? Null means what? I'll read out the definition now. The attribute may not have an applicable value for it. means Suresh doesn't have phone number. So I don't have value for it. I don't have any value to be filled in that field. What should I do? I'm not supposed to leave it empty. So what else can be done? For that, I'll repeat, the attribute may not have an applicable value for it. So that applicable value means Suresh E doesn't have any value to be filled in that field. That is why the word applicable value. For example, email attribute. You might have seen, like while filling the application, most of the people they leave off blank for the email attribute. So, for example, email attribute, that is some people may have email ID. Those people they are going to fill email ID. But for those who do not have email ID, then the value will be null for the email attribute. It's an example, and while coming for the diagram, instead of leaving the field as blank, I could fill null. I can write NULL there in order to say that Suresh doesn't has any phone number with respect to student phone. Clear? Okay. And where and all I can use this null? The unknown category of null can be further classified into two cases. That is, the first case arises when it is known that the attribute value exists, but it is missing. For example, if the height attribute of a person is listed as null, meaning to say, assume that you had gone for some or else you are filling some application and they have asked you the blood group of a person. See, each and every person will have their corresponding blood group. Yes. But while filling that application form, that person, he doesn't know his blood group. See, he knows there exists a blood group. But at that moment, he doesn't know the blood group. That moment, he is going to write it as null. Same here. They're asking your height. If they're asking what is the height of a person, we know the height of a person will be there. Some value will be there. But while filling the application form or while filling the data, at that moment I don't know the exact value. So that moment you can say write some approximate value. See, writing some approximate value, there is a difference between your approximate and an exact value. Here we are maintaining database for accuracy to collect the data. It's not a raw data. It's an information. The data is nothing but what? When you store the data in a database, it is information that will be used by some other person. You're not supposed to give wrong data. So meaning to say what? The value exists, but at that moment I don't know that value. The second case arises when it is known whether the attribute value exists or not. For example, if the email attribute of a person is null, meaning to say here in email attribute I'm going to fill it as null if that person doesn't has email ID. I hope you could make out the difference between the first case and the second case. In first case, what happens? The value will be there. For sure, the value will be there. The height of a person, every person will be having their height. Every person will be having their own blood group. But in second case, not each and every individual will be having their mail ID. In second case, what? They won't be having any value. In that case, we are going to fill it as null. In first case, value will be there, but we don't know that value. In that case also we're going to use the null value in order to fill the particular field. Okay. Next we have complex attributes. Okay. What is this complex attributes? It's a combination of composite attribute and multi attributes. They are telling it's in combination. In middle you can make it out, it's a plus symbol. Complex attributes equal to composite attributes plus multivariate attributes. I hope you remember what is composite attribute. See, composite attribute means a value which can be further divisible. Just observe here in the diagram the address field, the right hand field, the right hand part, the right hand. I am saying only address, not the address phone, not the first circle, the second ellipse which says address. It is further divisible into what? The street address, the city, state and zip. Here the address field is called as what? Composite. Composite means which can be further divisible further. Next is what? Multi-valued attributes. Meaning to say a phone field is a multi-valued attribute because it can have more than one value. What is this complex attribute? Assume that we have a student or else we have an employee. Take of any example. We have a student. That student, sometimes he comes from hostel. Sometimes he travels from his home. Sometimes he travels from his aunt's house. So, when I consider the address field of that particular person, address are what? Multi-valued, correct? Because he has many address. One is hostel, the permanent parent's house and his aunt's house. 3 address, so multi-valued. And this address, can I further divide? Yes. How? Street ID, city, state, zip code. So that address is now considered as what? Complex attribute. Okay. In this, I am saying, see in this example, I am telling even phone as a complex attribute. I am saying only the phone. I am still explaining only phone. I have not yet reached address phone. Even phone, is it a complex attribute? Yes. Ma'am, like you might ask, in previous slide you told phone is a multi-valued attribute. You remember? Here I told phone, student phone. In diagram, in student phone number, I told it's a multi-valued attribute. Now you are telling phone is a complex attribute. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Can one attribute, why is it possible? Because what am I saying here in the definition? Complex attributes itself is nothing but what? It's a combination of multi-valued attribute and composite attribute. Okay? Here, why am I saying phone as a complex attribute? We know like one person can have many phone numbers, that is more than one value. It satisfies the second property, that is multi-value. What about this composite? Composite means what? It has to be divided into further independent attribute. See, even phone, I can divide it further as area code and phone number. Do you agree? So further, the phone number is decomposing. That's why phone is what? It's a complex attribute. So even address is also a complex attribute because here I am not depicting here, like even the address field, it should be in double circle, it should be in double ellipse, but in the picture whatever they are portraying here, they are trying to give more complex example. If someone asks you, is address a complex attribute? Yes, address is a complex attribute if person has more than 1 or 2 address. Meaning to say if he has more than 2 house. What if a person has more than 2 house? One is farmhouse and another is a permanent house. It's not like, I'm not saying it as a corresponding address and a permanent address. I'm saying he has 2 permanent address. He owns two buildings and both buildings are his permanent address. In that case, address will be our multi-valued as well as composite. I'll go to the first one, that is address phone. See, even in, it's a big complex example they have given here. Address phone is what? That is a multi-value because one person can have, as I said, if a person has two houses, those two houses will be having their own phones. Like house 1 has one landline number, one cell number, and the other one is carless. We'll assume for example, for your understanding sake. And house number 2 will be having different phone number, right? I can't have same phone. I can't have same phone number for two different houses. If it's a mobile, then okay, we can carry. But in this example, what am I saying? For understanding sake, if a person has two houses and assume he has a landline and he has individual phone for each home separately, then phone number can be multi-valued and even address is multi-valued, and further they can decompose further. Those are nothing but our complex attributes. It's a complex example they have given. You can think of only phone number. Even phone number, is it a complex attribute? Yes. Why? Because phone number is a multi-value. We can have more than one value. And is it composite? Yes. How? Because we can decompose further into area code and phone number. Let's go for the definition. Here complex attributes means composite and multi-valued attributes can be nested arbitrarily. We can represent composite attributes between parentheses and separating the components with commas, and by displaying multi-valued attributes between the braces. Such attributes are called as complex attributes. As I said previously, it's a combination of composite and multi-valued. The attribute should be both multi-valued as well as composite. Means attributes which has more than one value, and it's supposed to decompose. It's supposed to divisible into subparts are called as complex attributes. For example, if a person can have more than one residence, as I told, if a person has more than one residence means home, house. A person has more than one residence and each residence can have single address. House 1 has separate address, house 2 has separate address, and multiple phones. An attribute address phone for a person is specified below is a complex attribute. And they are telling both phone and address are themselves are composite attributes. As I said in this previous example, they have given you complex example, and what they are telling, the first field address phone, it's a complex attribute, and the next field phone and address, even they are like complex attributes. Why? Because phone can have multiple values and it can be decomposed further. Address is also a multi-valued and it can be divided further. So even those two are what? Examples of complex attributes. And how it is represented by using flap brackets and parentheses, that is round bracket, it's shown below. And I hope it's easy to follow. So till now what we did, we studied the types of the attributes, that is simple and composite. Simple means only one value, composite means which can be divided further. Single and multi-valued. Single means only one value, multi-valued means it can have more than one value. Stored and derived. Stored means the value is stored, like date of birth. Derived means that value will not be there in table, but using stored value like date of birth, I can derive a new value, means age. Those are called as derived attributes. Next we studied where to use null, and now we have complex attributes. These are the types of attributes. We should be knowing this. well before starting our actual development. Next comes an important part, entity types and entity sets. See, all this time, whenever we were explaining, we were using the term entity. And here we are going to look at the difference between entity types and entity sets. In another 5 minutes, it should be very clear for you guys, like the difference between the entity types, entity sets and entity. As I said previously, I'll come to this slide next. First look at this one. As I said previously, entity means what? The basic definition of the entity means a physical object, a real world object. For example, a person. A person, is it a real world object? I can say person as a real world object, but a person name, for example ABC, or else Ram. Ram is a real object, is an entity? Yes, because Ram is what? The name of the person, and it is representing a particular human being, that is an entity. I'll just explain with this table. Assume that it's a student table. It's a table. We're not focusing on the database. We're just looking at the table student. And student table has roll number, student name, age and mobile number. Fine. Here, row 1 says 1 Andrew 18 mobile number. 2 says 2 Angel 19 mobile number. 3 is Priya 20 mobile number. 4th is Annalisa 21 mobile number. What am I saying here? Why am I highlighting? Angel. Angel, is it an entity? Yes, it is an entity. Andrew, is it an entity? Yes, even that is an entity. Priya is an entity. Yes. Annalisa is an entity. Yes, they are the entities. What are the attributes? Roll number is an attribute. Means that is going to describe Priya, which is going to describe Andrew. Means if I say roll number 1, that represents Andrew. Or if someone asks, what is the roll number of Andrew? That will be stored in the roll number attribute. I am saying Andrew is an entity, Angel is an entity, even Priya is an entity, and Annalisa is an entity. But why is that I am highlighting Angel and Annalisa? I am not highlighting anyone. I just wanted to say in the next step the meaning of entity set. That is why I have just encircled it. Meaning to say, a tuple or a row which represents a physical real word object is an entity. The data whatever we are giving, that will be our entity. Then what is this student? Student is entity type. Meaning to say the data whatever have written in this table, that constitutes to student. Is it representing course? My data inside this table. Is it saying anything about the course? No. Is it saying anything about the project? No. So the entity type here is student. If you go for another table, their entity type will be different. Entity type depends on the data which is there inside the table. So the data here is 1, Andrew, 18 and the phone number. That represents the entity. That represents what? Entity. And the collection of the data. The collection of the data with similar attributes. See, Angel has roll number, student name, age and mobile number. Does she have extra address field? She might be having, but my question is, in this table, does she have extra field? No. Does Priya has extra field for address? No. Annalisa, does she has? No. No one has address field, extra address field. All the four entity has same attributes, same number of attributes, and they are similar. Meaning to say, have not given 1A for Andrew and 200. Meaning to say, for roll number, I am not mixing alphabets and integer. I am using only integer. For example, your Aadhaar number. Each and every citizen, he has 12-digit Aadhaar number. Am I differentiating by giving 10-digit to few people and 4-digit Aadhaar number, 5-digit Aadhaar number? No. Everybody has same. It's not same. The structure I am saying, how many digits? And all digits, like 12-digit Aadhaar number they have. Similarly, here the structure, the attribute of all the entities should be same. That is called as what? Your entity type. It's going to describe the type of entities which are going to present in that particular table. I hope it's clear. Then what is this entity set? It depends, like from a group of students, I'll go to a class and I'll ask, raise your hands, like I'll ask the names of the students who have scored more than 80. Say suppose there are 16 members, 16 students, 60 students are there in a particular class, and I'm asking only for those two students who have scored more than 80. Assume that two students have raised their hand, that is Angel and Annalisa. So what am I doing? I'm grouping those two and I'm putting under one set. That is called as what? Entity set. See, I'm not saying Andrew is not a student, Priya is not a student. Those are student only, but I'm grouping on particular, depending on particular condition. The situation may arise to group few people. In that case, we're going to create our entity set. So entity set is what? It's a collection of entity. Entity type is what? Even it's a collection of entity, but with the same attribute, with a common attribute. I hope it's clear. I repeat, entity is the data. The data, whatever we're giving inside the table, that is going to represent our entity. And from yesterday's class and today's class, at least try to correlate our ER diagram with respect to this table. See, in ER diagram I told you have entity and you have attributes. And I told entities are represented in rectangular boxes and attributes are represented in ellipse. And the question may arise, ma'am, you are telling Priya or Angel as an entity, but in diagram, ER diagram, we never wrote the name of a student or the name of a particular person in entity set. Inside the rectangle, we have never drawn. We used to write only a student, that is entity type. Here, what we do usually in our day-to-day life, we interchange, like we use either entity and entity type. Both intercorrelately we use. There's no, we use sometimes entity, we use sometimes entity type. So usually we orally say it as entity, but you should be knowing, orally we say it as entity. For student, we say it as entity, but that is with respect to ER diagram I'm saying. In order to avoid your confusion, in order to remove your confusion, why are we using entity? Because interrelate, while speaking in normal language, we developer, you usually say it's an entity. But we never say roll number as an entity. We can't say roll number as an entity. It's an attribute. Entity types and entity are used interchangeably, no problem. But you should be knowing the exact meaning of the entity and the entity type. Entity type is what? It's a collection. Whereas entity is what? It's a particular tuple, the data of a particular row. Okay, let's go back to the definition. Entity type. See, the first one is entity type I'm saying. I'm not telling entity type. See here, entity type is student. Okay, entity type, it defines a collection of entities. What is entities? Andrew, that row is an entity. Angel is another entity. Priya is another entity. Annalisa is another entity. So, entity type defines a collection of entities that have same attributes. As I told, all four should have same attribute. I'm not supposed to have extra attribute here. I can have, but if I have extra attribute, all four students should have that value. Clear? I repeat, the entity type defines a collection of entities that have the same attributes. Example, employee entity type. And here in figure, if I go for this, student is an entity type which has roll number, student name, age and mobile. Yesterday we discussed employee, where employee is an entity type which has name, age and salary, etc. I hope it's clear for you. The meaning of entity type. It's defined as a collection of entities that have the same attributes. Next is entity sets. As I told here, what do you mean by entity sets? It's a collection of entity. See, E1 and E2 together they are forming one entity set. The collection of all entities of a particular entity type in a database at any point of time are called as entity set. And the entity set is also known as what? Extension. Okay, and this is the diagram. I have taken it from your prescribed textbook. They are explaining the first picture. The entity type name is what? Employee. Under employee, what they have? Employee number, name, department and designation. Meaning to say here, instead of student they have what? Employee. Instead of roll number, here what they have? Attributes field, employee number. Instead of roll number we have employee number, employee name, then it has name of the department and designation. Those are the attributes. And inside this box what they have given, the ID of a person, that is 8005. The name of the person is Paul and it belongs to sales department and his designation is PM. See, I told no, this entire row, the value, the entire row is what? Are entity. That's why they have written it as what? E1, entity 1. And the second row is called as what? Entity 2. And the third row is entity 3. This is for employee table. This is for what? Employee table. The same thing I wanted. How to represent product table? For this they have given it here. Entity type is here what? The product. It's a different table. Both are not same. This is employee table. See, whatever I have it here, it's a student table. Similarly, I can have one more employee table and the other one is product. It's just for explanation's sake they have written. In order to understand in depth, here the entity type is what? Product. And what are the attributes it's having? Product ID, name and cost. And what are the values inside the table? We have 815, floppy drive and 500. The cost of the floppy drive is 500. This is one entity. Okay. And the second one is F314 keyboard 1200. This is another entity. Clear? So entity sets means what? The collection of all the entities of a particular entity. See, this is one entity type. The employee is one entity type. Product is another entity type. You should not confuse between employee and product. And this Paul, Paul is an entity under employee entity type. See, I'm using entity type, entity set repeatedly. You please clear with these terms. It's very important. Employee is entity type, but Paul is an entity because he is the physical real world object. It's a collection of real world objects, that is our entity type. And sets means, as we know, in a group of people we will be selecting only few in order to group depending on few conditions. That comes under our entity sets. Clear? Okay. And next we have key attributes of an entity type. I told you previously, entity type means what? Student. Student is an entity type. Just remember, see, student. Student is an entity type. Okay. But in further, we usually use student as entity. That is our naming convention. Don't get confused with entity type and entity. First, what they are telling it here, key attribute, I'll just read out the definition first, then I'll come to the explanation. An attribute whose values are distinct for each individual entity in the entity set is called as what? Key attributes. And its value can be used to identify each entity uniquely. I'm sorry, the diagram is kind of blur here. I hope it is manageable. Say suppose if I ask you the phone number or the city, the state, you please tell me the state of person, you please tell me the state of a student whose name is Suresh. Say suppose if I ask, you please tell me the name of you please tell me the state. You tell me student state whose name is Suresh. What you going to do? From the table, you're going to look at the table, and here is the Suresh in the 4th row, and you're going to search the state name of a person Suresh. His name is what? Its name is Punjab. Okay. What if I ask the same thing? Tell me the state name of student Ram. I want the name of the state from where Ram comes from. What you do? Same. You look at the database, you look at the table. We have Ram here, we have Ram here as well. Okay, at least look at the state. First Ram is from Haryana, second Ram is from Punjab. Now the confusion arises. To which Ram am I pointing to? Which data the database is supposed to give? When I ask the database, give me the value of the state or give me the name of the state from where the student Ram is coming, the database gets confused here. Because I can't use this name of a student in order to identify a particular row. Because more than 2 students can have same name. So what are we doing it here? We are giving student number to each and every student, and these numbers are unique. No student can have same number. In your class also, can 2 students can have same roll number? No. 2 students can have same name. In the same class, 2 students can have same name. But 2 students, can they have same roll number? No, they are not supposed to have same roll number. So we are giving an individual ID to each and every student of a class. Why are we giving that individual ID? Say suppose if I ask you, you tell me from where the student Ram is coming. You tell me the state from where student Ram is coming and whose student number is 1. Student Ram whose roll number is 2. You tell me the state of student Ram whose roll number is 2. Is it easy to identify now? Yes, because I am clearly mentioning the student name is Ram, but his roll number is what? 2. This 2, that roll number, it is helping me to identify each and every row uniquely. Because I am damn sure like no 2 rows will be having same number. So what am I doing it here? This unique value I'm using to identify each and every row. That unique value is what our student number. This field student number is called as what are key attributes. What is this key attribute? Why do I need it? Because think of you are searching for your result, marks result, and database, it has result of all the student. It will be having results of all the student, correct? And you will be searching for your name. Okay, assume that you are searching for your name and you will give your name. And when you give your name as Ram, the database similarly it searches for Ram in database. You can imagine your database contains details of all students from Karnataka, right? It can have n number of students by the name Ram only. So what is advisable, instead of searching your result depending on your name, what you guys give, you give your roll number, correct? Nobody searches their result depending on their name. They'll give their roll number, registration number. Depending on the registration number, it's going to search your row where it is there in the database. Once I gave my roll number, it's going to search the particular row, because I'm sure that the roll number is unique for each and every row, and the corresponding field it's going to search. Like say suppose if I give the roll number as 3, it goes to roll number 3, that third row, and it's going to search the required field whatever it's been asked for. Okay, I repeat, the key attribute is an attribute whose value are distinct. Distinct means different. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it repeating any value? Is it repeating here? But here, is it repeating? Yes, it can repeat. And it is repeating actually. And it happens in our daily life as well. One class can have many students. Like in one class, at least 2 students with the same name will be there. If there are no students, then it's fine. If the student name is not repeating, then it is fine. It works fine. What if the student name is repeating? And what if the initial is also repeating? Then there will be confusion, right? In that case, we'll be using this unique. That is distinct. Distinct means all different values. An attribute whose values are distinct for each individual entity. I told you, entity means what? The particular row. Row. Each row. Entity means row. In the entity set. Entity set means group of students. Here I am selecting all students in order to form our entity set. I repeat, an attribute whose value are distinct from each individual entity in the entity set is called as what? Key attributes, and its value can be used to identify each entity uniquely. See, each entity, I am using this to identify each row uniquely. That is called as what? My key attribute, and those are called as what? Primary key. We'll look at this, what is primary key, candidate key and all in further classes. The example of this is student number. Here I can have student number as key attribute. I can't have student name as key attribute because the name can repeat here. Fine? Okay. Next is value sets of an attributes. See, I told you attributes means what? Student number is an attribute. Student name is an attribute. Student number is phone number is an attribute. Student state is also attribute. Student age is also attribute. Okay. Say suppose while storing the data in age field, I am saying about the last field, in age, the age of roll number 1, Ram is what? 20. They have stored it properly. Can I write it as 20A, 20B or CC? Can I give ABCD in that field? No, we're not supposed to, because age cannot be ABCD. It should be an integer value, 10, 20, 30 like that. Correct? And for this phone number also. Can I give 1, 2, 3 as a phone number? No, valid phone number should contain 10 digit. Correct. So what this value sets does, it's going to define, or else the rules. What are the type of the value that can be stored in a particular field? It's going to say the type of the value. Means for age field, I'm not supposed to use A, B, C, D. I should give only integer value. For age field. First look at the example. The attribute first name, it can have a set of 30 characters. First name can have set of 30 characters. Character means A, B, C, D. Means English alphabets. Characters means English alphabets. The color here, for the color field, he is telling it can have only red, green, silver, white. Means the table, whatever I am designing, it can have only red, green, silver, white color. Doubt may arise. Blue, is it not a color? Blue is a color, but in the table or the database what we are designing, we are concentrating only on 4 colors, that is red, green, silver and white. That is the meaning. The color field, the color attribute, it can take only 4 values, that is red, green, silver, white. Next, the price can take only values from 30,000 to 70,000. The age, it can take, here rating have given, the rating I can give only from 0 to 10. Can't I give 100? Can't I give 1000? You can give, but we are limiting up to what? 0 to 10 in our database design. So value sets, what it says, the valid value that can be stored in a particular field, that will be determined by what? Our value sets. It's also called as what? Domains of an attribute. Clear? I read out the definition. Each simple attribute of an entity type is associated with a value set. I repeat, each simple attribute is an entity type. Each simple attribute of an entity type is associated with a value set. See, student is an entity type here. Student is an entity type here. Roll number is what? Attribute. Student number is what? Attribute. Age is attribute. So, age of student, that is the attribute of entity type, is associated with some values. Meaning to say, it can take only integer value. That's the definition of our value set. Each simple attributes of an entity type is associated with a value set, that are called as the domains of the attributes. This specifies the set of values that may be assigned to that attributes. We are going to define the type. Can it take an integer data? Can it take alphabets? Can it take special characters? We are going to define it. And the range also. Range means rating. See, I can give value only from 0 to 10. I am not supposed to give 11 also. And you can think of like, you are restricting the values, the type of value that can be entered to particular field of an entity. That comes under what? Your value sets or domains of the attributes. Clear? Okay, so today what we did, we discussed about the attributes, the types of the attributes, entity types and entity sets, and key values and value sets of the attributes. So that's all for the day, and these are the types, set of few MCQs I have added. So please go through it once. They are very simple and self-explanatory, and answers are also given there. Pause the video, analyze the question, look at the options. If you get any doubt, please go back to the previous slides where I have explained each and everything individually. And if you get any queries, please go through notes once. It will be very easy. I hope the concepts are clear. By this time, you should be knowing the meaning of the entity, entity type, entity sets, key value, value set, that is domain, what do you mean by entity, attributes, and the basic steps while designing a database application. So this is all for the day. Thank you. Thank you once again.